Jen just said, you two are a mess. Yes, that's the whole vibe.
That's the magic.
This is The Other 51. I'm Brian Moritz, and this week my guest is Dr. Jennifer Billinson, Assistant Professor and Director of Communication and Media Program at Nazareth University. So I think it's worth pointing out, Dr. Jenn Billinson, as we record this, we are sitting and I mapped this 12 minutes apart away from each other. Yet there was never a thought that we would actually do this in person because leaving the house.
No, we're not going to do that.
Who does that?
Who does that anymore? Absolutely not.
No, but I'm thrilled you're here. We talked we talk all the time because we're friends, but we talked on the podcast a couple years ago, and now you have a newest job, second year at Nazareth University here in the Rochester area. Congratulations on that.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Go
Bills.
You nailed it. Look at that. You've already picked it up. I'm so proud of you. Yes. I'm so proud of you. I did look back in our text thread, and when you thought the Bengals were in the Super Bowl, I thought that was one of your shining moments of football fandom.
Brian, you're blowing up my spot. I'm never going to be able to rebrand myself as the sports media girl if you continue to do this.
Oh, I'll edit that out. It's fine. No one will notice. Okay. So I'm having you here today because we want to talk about, kind of catch up on what's happening in the social media world. And a few months ago, we had our mutual friend Jeremy Lataw was on, and he talked. And this was back when like Mastodon was roaming the earth, and it was right after Elon Musk first bought Twitter and started implementing changes. And now we are several months separated from that, and you're one of the smartest people I know, one of the experts in social media and in this space. Can you kind of set the table for us? So it's late August as we're recording this. Where do things stand? What's happening in social media, big picture right now?
Wow. It is, it's the Wild West. I mean, we're still in this weird space where we're in a post-Threads world. I don't think we can say Threads is completely dead. I know that there are tons of people who are using the app, but it was the closest I think that we came to a potential Twitter killer, and it's just not taking off in the way that I think a lot of people have hoped. It's a mess, and I don't know. I can't even really predict where we're going. It's the Wild West. It's bananas.
So let's take it back, because I think when Threads debuted, I think it was like early July, late June, early July.
Yes.
When it kind of came out, and it just kind of popped up, like same with you, probably in my Instagram. I'm like, JR Billin and one of my other friends is on Threads. I'm like, what is this? Click over. And it's the Facebook, Instagram, Twitter replacement thread app. And I think it was funny because I think you and I, among the people that I like read and talk about social media, we were the two that were like super like, this could be good. Everyone else was kind of like, yeah, this is garbage and it's not going to go anywhere. But what was that first day for you like? 'Cause I remember my wife and I sitting on our deck, just like, this is amazing. This could be cool. Take me back to that first day when Threads debuted and what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah, so I am among the people that, I mean, I was an early Twitter adapter, early Twitter user, and I was just hanging on despite all of the mess, all of the Elon of it all. I was just like, I'm going to stay here till the end. But in the months leading up to the Threads debut, I was very much of the folks who were kind of like looking desperately for a new Twitter replacement, for a new home. And I think that I definitely got, into the hype. I think I was on Mastodon for maybe a day. I know I still have an account there, but I'm also, ADHD, and I need that instant gratification hit. So I was like 4 hours on Mastodon and then never looked at it again. I looked at Post. I was hopeful that Post was maybe going to be it, and it just wasn't. I got on Blue Sky and I was hopeful, but none of my friends were there. No one was on Blue Sky. So that was a real problem. So I think when Threads popped up and we knew it was coming, but there hadn't, at least in my sphere, hadn't seen any updates like it's imminent until the few days before, when they were like, oh, we're dropping it on Wednesday or whatever it was. And I joke all the time because I've started teaching social media in 2013. And when 2013, it was kind of this moment of like, look at the potential. Like, yes, there's all these problems and we're becoming corporatized in a lot of these spaces, and but there's potential for what social media can be. Teaching from 2016 on in the social media sphere has just been a downward spiral of despair, honestly. Like, to kind of be like, well, no, it wasn't what we hoped it could be. It connects people and it can be an amazing space for community building, but it just wasn't what we hoped it could be. And in fact, it's just getting worse. And there are more and more Nazis being platformed and things like that. So the day that Threads dropped, I was honestly so hopeful. I was way more naive than I should have been. My like cynical social media scholar hat, I just put it aside because it just felt kind of fun.
Mhm.
It felt like there was so much potential. It felt like if anybody could make something to compete, it was Zuckerberg, because not because he's absolutely amazing, and believe me, I spend most of my time railing on Zuckerberg, but because he has that power and that force behind it to make it be good. And I think people are so hopeful, and we're so hopeful, similar to how I was and probably how you were, that we could potentially move to a new space and we could have a newer, better alternative to Twitter. That for a moment it was just like, look what this can be. Like, there's so much potential. And I hung on for a while, and I remain maybe cautiously hopeful that once they get a desktop version, they might
Mm.
pull some more people once we get trending topics and things like that. But it was a moment where I feel like social media felt a little bit joyful and a little bit fun
Yeah.
in a way that it hadn't for a while. Was that your experience as well?
Yeah, absolutely. It was kind of like and I think I wrote about this, but it was kind of like usually when you join a social media platform, you join an already established place. Like you join Twitter, even if you're early, Twitter's been around. You know, you
Yes.
joined Facebook unless you were at Harvard in 2004. There are norms. You're kind of figuring it out. And what was fun for me about Threads that day and that next day was it was kind of like we're all jumping into the pool at the same time, and it
Yes.
was like, oh my gosh, what is this? This is kind of cool. This is interesting. This is neat. What's this going to be? And um yeah, it just hasn't been like so I still on Twitter. I like Blue Sky. I think there's a lot of potential there. And I
Agreed.
think and then Threads, but I think I'm on Threads the least. And I don't know, it just I don't know, like the people I follow on Instagram, like that was the allure of it, right? Like you already have this social map, the social graph, connections of people.
Mhm.
It's not like that's the problem with Blue Sky, like you said. People got to join, and you've got to find the people. Theoretically, on Threads, everyone's already there, which is a great network effect. But then all of a sudden, it's like nobody seems to be really posting. There are a few people, but it's not. I don't know. It's just nothing there that's like, ooh, I need to check this. I will check. I will go days without checking it. So.
Agreed. That's where I am too. And I think that it's been an interesting time to kind of evaluate your own social media use and why you gravitate to different spaces or social
Mhm.
media in general, because we could posit all we wanted about why people use these spaces, and there's amazing research about it. But I think that we all really have gotten a taste of it. And I think for me, it's very much the people. And
Yes.
I'm bossy. I am a Taurus. I want to just force all of my friends to just get on Threads. Everyone I love, including the people who don't know I exist, who I absolutely love to follow on Twitter, I want to just force them into Threads, just be like, you're going to stay here, you're going to like it, stay here and figure it out. But if the people aren't there, I mean, there's some functionality that I wish it had, but for me, it was very much, it's about news and it's about the people.
Mhm.
And Threads just hasn't had either one of those for me. And I mean, and I think that was the kind of magic of that first day, when everyone was kind of coming on just to see what this was like, or just to kind of see what it could potentially be. And then as it fizzles out, as people leave, I find myself being dragged back to Twitter just to kind of
Mhm.
see what's going on with the people. So it's an interesting moment to kind of.
Well, and it's so spread out the engagement as well. Like if I'm posting something on three similar-ish sites, Twitter, Blue Sky, and Threads, like there's not that, like that was kind of the magic of Twitter, was like hate it, love it. It was the one place where that stuff went. And now it's
Yes.
kind of spread out a little bit. A lot I want to unpack here, but you mentioned teaching social media in 2013 and kind of like the promise of it all. And I really think of that in terms of journalism, like 2010,
Yes.
2011, that space. And then since 2016, pointed date, it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
sucked. So I assume the orange man is one of the main reasons why it has started to profoundly suck. But why else? What else kind of happened between 2013 and maybe 2016, 2017? Was it all Trump? Was it other stuff that went from, hey, this could be still be really great, this could be really interesting connection, to, oh.
I think we were in this space back in like 2009, 2010, 11, 12, 13, where we saw a lot of the like potential for political, social uprisings using social media. I think of like the Arab Spring. I think of like that moment in time where we were looking at it and say, look how like power can be, given back to the people. And so it wasn't just like this necessarily this magical turn in 2016, but what happened in 2016 and 2017 is a lot of these things came to light about the dark side of these
Mhm.
social media platforms. Like we have it confirmed now that Facebook, had a hand in genocide. And so all of these things kind of came to light. I think that we have all this potential, but capitalism and these mega social media corporations are going to do their thing, and we can only push against that so far. And so I thought
Mhm.
we saw kind of the promise in our own country about holding police accountable during acts of police brutality and subsequent marches and demonstrations with that. But ultimately, it didn't really do much. It didn't really do much to hold the powerful accountable. So I think that was a big thing. I think also just the idea of the safety of these spaces. We've had many more conversations in the 2010s about what it means to be a person of color, a person of a minority group. A woman in these
Mhm.
spaces has become untenable for a lot of folks. And as the orange man kind of came out, it became a litmus test, and these private social media companies had the ability to say, we're not going to platform it, we're not going to, and not just him, but obviously the sprouting up of white supremacist groups. They had the potential. They aren't beholden to the First Amendment to do, to kind of protect other folks on these spaces, and we saw that they just chose not to. I think it was a kind of a real slap in the face that these companies, these organizations, they're not our friends, and they won't ultimately protect us in ways that a lot of folks in those groups were really depending on it. And that's kind of how I viewed it.
Yeah, I look at it from a journalism and a news perspective, and like some of the early research that came out of it's like 2010, 2011 research was around, the kind of one of the main papers on it was called Normalizing Twitter, and the whole idea was how journalists were using Twitter, but then bringing the traditional norms, practices, values, routines, all of that into the space. And I think that that's a really telling thing in hindsight, to be able to say, like, Twitter didn't change journalism. Journalists just kind of use this new tool on their existing it didn't change how they do their jobs. It made it faster, is basically what it did. But everything
Yeah.
else, in terms of sources, in terms of, what's a story, what's not, that tended to stay the same. You mentioned people using their understanding why they use certain social media. From what does kind of research tell us from your work about why people use different platforms, and especially let's focus kind of on the Twitter-ish, because like the whole social media blow up right now is basically trying to find Twitter that's not evil, basically,
Yeah.
trying to find a non-evil Twitter. So what does research tell us about why people use the platforms and what they get out of it?
Yeah. So a lot of what folks use Twitter, and a lot of heavy Twitter users use it for the social connectivity, the aspect of news, because in terms of like breaking news, in terms of having all of those sources in one space, Twitter has been it. I mean, it has largely been it, right? Not to say that you can't find those diffuse sources, but to have them in one space and to be able to be following, certain accounts, it's been it. It's the place for breaking news. But also a lot of people use it for professional networking, especially academic Twitter. People in media industries use it for that as well. So it's kind of been an interesting melding if we think of um, you know, Facebook being for friends and family, and if you're an old like we are, using it for that. Instagram is maybe kind of this way to kind of curate your life and photos and videos, things like that. Twitter has very much been kind of a melding for a lot of people of the personal and professional in a really unique way, which is why I also think this has become untenable when you have kind of removing sourcing, removing verified users, things like that, because you can no longer, use it in good faith to kind of have that professional outward facing personality anymore. And so
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting kind of thing that's kind of been eroded through the Musk years, or
Yeah.
year almost. Yeah.
Yeah. It's only been a year, hasn't it?
It's only been a year. I was thinking back, it was to the fall, and I was teaching my social media class, and we were all just watching, like, what is going to happen? That
Hmm.
deal looked like it was going to fall through about 10 times.
Hmm.
And then I remember I was teaching social media the day he walked in with the sink. And so I'll never forget that. And you never forget when you have students turn to you just to be like, what's going on? And you just, I don't know, youth, I don't know. Is my answer.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned the verified as a verified source for news. Just as a quick example of that, our state assembly rep, who's amazing, she and her office no longer use Twitter as like an official, like I don't know if they deactivated it or not, but they said we're not posting here because this cannot be a trusted source for all that. And I find that to be interesting. I wanted to ask about teaching. Actually, we'll get to teaching social media in a second, but you brought up kind of like the different aspects of different social platforms, which is always like the hidden secret, right? Social media is not one thing; it's a billion things, and it's
Exactly.
interesting because like until last year when he walked in with the stupid sink, we it was like for it felt to me. I'm interested if you think this too, that social media had kind of coalesced into like the set platforms, right? Like Facebook is the bulletin board. It was the old people.
Yep.
It was that, Instagram was one thing, Twitter was one thing. And then you kind of had, I had it in fourth, and it was Snapchat. And then TikTok is kind of like the other video one. And I know that's gross simplification, but it was very much kind of like set into similar things. And now it just kind of feels like, yeah, with like three instead of, or like without that Twitter. I don't know. It feels like all of a sudden that stasis just kind of got blown up a little bit by all this. And I don't know, maybe it's just me because I'm in the Twitterverse more than anything else, but it does feel
Yep.
kind of like things went kablooey a little bit.
100%. And I think that I know for me, it also made me step back and take stock of how much I use Twitter, because it becomes just second nature. I check it for news. And
Yep.
so it's just to kind of take stock of that. And when we had normalized, and I think a huge part of this was, the Trump election and how much he used Twitter, we normalized it as being a space where our elected officials were expected to be. And so suddenly when they're not, and it becomes, it's also a really interesting thing to talk about in the classroom, and just to think about these norms, like as you mentioned, that we kind of establish with these platforms and what we expect of them, and what happens when those norms are kind of exploded. What do we do? Where do we go? Like
Mhm.
what happens then?
Well, and it's also crazy to think that like the first Trump campaign is 8 years ago now, because he came down the stairs in 2015. And like when you think about teaching college kids, like
Yes.
how young, like they don't know a world without
No.
this being kind of like the normal, or like the established way of using social media, which is weird. So how did you? Yeah, I was thinking about this because we have a social media journalism course in our program,
Mhm.
and I think the obvious thing was always you never teach the platform, you teach the big picture stuff. But now that one platform, a major platform, has kind of gone kablooey and is like, we're how are you approaching teaching social media in this space in a way that I think students would find useful? Like the whole what of it all is interesting, but you and I know students, they're like, well, what do I need to get a job? How am I going to use this as a social media marketer? So how are you approaching the semester?
So I was fortunate enough to have to be moved into another two classes. So I
Mhm.
have now outsourced social media. So I am I'm torn, because I both I, I'm ugh, I'm thrilled not to be teaching it, but I wish I was, because I
Hmm.
want to know what students think about this, especially because this is the generation that we've, been talking about forever and ever, where they've grown up completely in social media. Like they were here, they were born when Facebook existed. Like they've never
Right.
lived without it, especially our freshmen. So in some ways, I think that makes students like not as not as analytical, because it's been not as
I know
not
what you mean.
analytical,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's like when you're born into a world where this has already always existed, you know how to use these spaces, you're socialized into it, but you maybe didn't think about what it was like before, or what happens when these things go away. Because again, we're almost at a time where our freshmen are in 2 years, our freshmen will have been born into a world with Twitter, right? Like they were. So it becomes, I still think that I started pivoting a little bit more to teaching platforms, like platform specific,
Okay.
like how do you actually use these spaces? And we've since outsourced this class. Is now for us is going to be taught by a social media practitioner, which I think is really, really useful. I kind of always go to needing to split those classes between theory about, social media theory, social theory, all those things, but to also just be talking critically about what is happening. Like I think it has to be almost like a current events type class. And I found students so receptive to that, both because it's interesting, right? Like we're experiencing this all together, but that idea that you can experience it all together means everyone can bring in interesting ideas about what might potentially happen or what is happening, right? We can
Right.
all kind of come from the same basis of sharing what this looks like. But it's a constant challenge, and it's a challenge that shifted about how to teach it. And I think that the explosion of Twitter really kind of put that, and also quite frankly the tenuous position that TikTok has been occupying for the past year or so, has put that into perspective about what do we do? How do we teach people how to use this? How do we, we spent 2 years telling everyone they've got to have the TikTok, you need a TikTok platform, you need a TikTok presence, to suddenly it could go away. It could be gone from the United States. So it's so tenuous. So you can't put all of your eggs in either basket. You have to kind of spread it out. And you got to kind of be really, if you're teaching social media or digital culture, you have to be willing to kind of throw everything out at the last minute when Elon walks down with this.
Or when it's rush week at Alabama for a sorority
Bama
rush
talk.
week, Bama talk.
Exactly.
I follow that. I follow a writer who covers it, and that is, man, that is an interesting, and it's such a subspec, kind of indicative, I think, of social media. Like the story that's nothing except on
Mm-hmm.
TikTok, it's massive, and
It's everything.
then
We're in year 3 now. This is year 3 of Bama talk.
that's incredible.
I know.
What's most interesting to you, kind of where the social space is and where it's headed? Like someone who's in this space a lot and researches and thinks about it a lot. Um, what's most interesting to you about what's coming in social
I
media?
think that we've already seen it with the explosion of Twitter, with people trying to be digital nomads and trying to find their spaces. Just this bifurcation, this diffusion of the audiences and the users, I think is really fascinating and will have really big social implications. I think that we looked at a lot of us who use Twitter very heavily. I always had to kind of remind myself, and I would remind myself every semester when I taught this, that it's not a critical mass of us on
No,
Twitter. Like
no.
it's not that
It's
big.
it's ridiculously small.
It's
The
ridiculously small, but it has had such huge social and political implications, especially in like the Trump era. So I think because of that, that kind of diffusion and having people go to their different, social media spaces is going to be really interesting. And I think that that also echoes what we've seen with popular culture, television, film as well, that we don't have that kind of shared collective culture anymore that we
right.
even had when we were in grad school, right? Like I was taking popular culture classes, and now it just seems mainly, I mean, you wait, and every, maybe every 7 years you get a Barbie movie, and
Right.
that has people talking about the same thing. So from someone who studies like culture and things like that, that I think is going to be a really interesting thing. And I think that's going to be even more dangerous as we try to fight misinformation and disinformation, to have that diffused audiences. So I think that a lot of people were expecting that to kind of happen, the kind of the end of the social internet, like as they were calling it.
Mhm.
I think we've been thrust into it way faster than I think anyone's prepared. is kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, no, that's interesting because it's like if you have multiple spots, places that you're going to, now there's not that one trusted place,
Right,
right? And, Twitter
right.
for that, and this was before Elon did away with all the verification. Like there was at least some sort of, okay, you can check it out on Twitter. You can see who, like in sports, if Woj tweeted that out, or if in news, like Maggie Haberman tweeted it out. Okay, there's at least some, like, this is a legit thing that's happening. But now you can't tell, and now you don't know where they are. You can't find. You
Exactly.
don't know where to go to check the news to see if it's real.
I mean, it was one of those things when we were talking about how to verify, how to check information, and especially in the beginning of the Trump administration, when there'd be so many fake screenshots and all these
Mm-hmm.
things. Like I would literally tell people, no, you need to go to his Twitter account, the verified Twitter account, and see if he's like what he
Yeah.
has posted. And now it's like no one verification means nothing,
Right.
and people have removed Twitter from their phones.
Yeah.
So
Right.
yeah,
You mentioned this, and we'll just do this in passing. How good was Barbie?
Barbie was so good,
So
Brian.
good.
Barbie was so good. And I see the criticism that it's kind of like feminism 101, but not everyone has taken feminism or gender
Right.
studies 101. And I don't think there's any problem with that.
No.
I thought it was so great. It was better than I expected. I think that I very much was going into it being like, oh, I love being part of an internet thing, right? We're all
Yeah.
going to go see Barbie on the opening day. That's what we all decided on the internet. And then it was great. I loved it.
Excellent. You haven't seen Oppenheimer, have you?
I have not seen Oppenheimer. That is way too long of a movie and way too serious in this day and age.
I think I texted you, I'm going to watch Oppenheimer like the Lord intended over 3 nights because it is way too long, falling asleep on my couch every night like a gentleman.
Exactly. That's the way to do it.
So, okay, who wins in a fight, Zuckerberg or Elon?
Oh my God. Okay. I I'm obsessed with this.
I knew you would be.
I had found there was no levity to be had, and then when he started the "we're gonna fight" thing, and when Zuckerberg first, when Elon, the first one was Elon's mom was like, "You're not gonna do that," and I thought that was incredible. His mom's telling him not to,
Right.
and now the whole, well, I have to get an MRI, and I only want it to be in a Coliseum in Rome, and all of these things. Honestly, I think I hate to be all in rooting for Zuckerberg, but that's the place where I found myself these days in more ways than one. And I think Zuckerberg would absolutely knock him out on the floor.
Well, yeah.
I mean, who knew I didn't know Zuckerberg was like an MMA fighter or
Right.
whatever he's doing. Like,
I mean, what else is he doing with his life? He's not in the metaverse anymore, so he's
that's
got it.
exactly
Yeah, that's
right.
what he's doing, and he's also got like 20 years on Elon. I
I
mean, the
know.
greatest trick the devil ever pulled was Mark Zuckerberg becoming the social media hero of 2023.
Brian, I went from in the spring of this last semester being like Zuckerberg is the worst, and here are 45 different ways about how he is the absolute worst and he's ruining society and he's an absolutely horrible human being, to we are all in on Zuckerberg. He's our guy. We're rooting for him both physically in a physical fight and also in a battle of wills. Like we need him. He's the anti-hero we didn't know we needed. So
Like
oh
Carmi and the
God.
bear. Um,
Exactly.
uh, so do you have a sense or a guess of I find it so interesting too that of all like the social media implosions, it feels like everyone's just trying to recreate Twitter, but with like different like things. Which one do you have a gut feeling right now? Which survives? Or which is the one? Do people just stay with Twitter and hope that like Elon eventually sells it or gets out and they start to build it back up? Does Threads do it? Does Blue Sky come through as like the bespoke version of it? What happens?
Right. I think that's the billion-dollar question, right? I think that there are going to be people who are sticking around Twitter forever. If he sold it and they went back to a lot of the different policies, like the verification system, so perhaps not letting, Nazis run so rampant in that space, I would go back in a heartbeat. Like I miss it. I miss being a very heavy Twitter user. I think that his best efforts to absolutely kill it haven't, all panned out, which is shocking. So I think it sticks around for a little while longer. I a lot of people say that they'll use Threads more when there's a desktop version,
Okay.
right? Or when there's, I mean, the call for the desktop version has been so strong, and a lot of journalists are saying that as well. I guess I didn't realize that not everyone has a job where they can sit around and look at their phone. I truly didn't realize
Random,
how many
right? Yeah.
people need to be sitting at a desk and pretending they're working. So I don't know. I think that Blue Sky, it's like every week it's a different thing. So they kind of eke out a little bit, because Blue Sky had so much potential. And I think if they moved out of beta a little bit quicker and got open up the platform, I think that has potential too. So I don't know.
Yeah.
And every week I have a different answer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I don't know.
just
What are your
I
thoughts?
know I feel like I think Threads is going to be the Google Plus of this space, or
Mm,
everyone's signed up and it's a big network.
yeah.
But honestly, like I know we talked about this, that the fact that they took almost a month to roll out the following thing, and so
Yes.
when you were new and you're logging on, it was all these random people that you didn't follow, and I think people just got, I'm done with this. I'm not coming back to it. It's not 2009 where you don't have options anymore. If you've got options, you're going to go to a different place. And
Exactly.
yeah, no search, no desktop version. If you're a reporter, that's your life, really, is
Yeah.
being able to search and find stuff, and to be able to not have to pick up your phone and type. And Blue Sky doesn't have an iPad app, which I find interesting. But I'm sure that
Yeah.
will come out. I think, I don't know, like I do feel like that 1 century, I think it's gonna be a few years. I'm pulling
I
this
think so
out,
too.
but because I think enough people left Twitter that even if Elon sells it and it kind of starts rolling back, it's going to take time to bring people back. I think I do like Blue Sky. I think that, it's too small right now in terms of user base, in terms of network. But I think that's it, I don't know, that feels the most promising from a what I want out of the thing. Not as necessarily the
Yeah.
most successful, the $1 billion thing, but I feel like that kind of hits my sweet spot on it. But again, no one's there. So not, I'm gonna
No
say no
one's
one's
there.
there, but not
No, but
comparatively speaking, no one's there. And so,
exactly. And I think I know I was just gonna say, I think that also they underestimate how quickly our attention spans are,
yeah,
and how that the cycle of news and information, and they needed all of this stuff right away, and they
hmm,
needed it really quickly. They needed to take advantage of the fact that they had so many people in that space right then, and they didn't do it for
right,
whatever reason. I understand it's difficult. I know, who know nothing of like tech or programming or things like that,
right,
understand it's difficult to build these spaces,
right.
but it was a missed opportunity.
It was. All right, so we'll get you out of here on the question I always end with. What's the best thing you've read lately?
Oh my God, I'm supposed to be reading things.
Yes.
Oh my God, what's the best thing I've read lately? Brian, I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't know when the last thing that I read was. Because I've been so despondent with X and Twitter and all these things, I've been spending my valuable time and life on where I usually go when I need a little bit of escapism, and that's TikTok. And I
Nice.
have not been reading a lot of things. I just go on TikTok and I just find myself in these different rabbit holes.
All right, all right. We'll play with that. What's your favorite? What are your favorite TikTok rabbit holes? Like, what's your favorite subgenre of TikTok right now?
Brian, I got into so deep into Arabian perfume TikTok, excuse me. I am not like a perfume fan. I mean, it's fine. I like it. It's fine,
Yeah,
right? But then I fell into this rabbit hole where they were presenting me with all these things that they said are the best smelling things ever. You need to have it. And the price points are like $25. So I began my collection. And within, I don't know, 14 days, I had amassed like 5 or 6 of these perfumes, half of which I think smell absolutely horrifying, and I'm giving them away to people. But I am so suggestible. I can teach all these things all I want, but I am the most suggestible when it comes to media. And I happily fell into this, and I would recommend it to anyone as well. So that's where I've been living the past 2 weeks. So needless to say, I'm very prepared for the semester to start in that intellectual space of academia.
it is the best thing I've read it all lately
Yeah.
is Arabian perfume TikTok. That's a new one. That is brand new.
I like to bring a little something different to the pod.
Uh,
I am not even going to pretend to be intellectual these days.
So all right. Well, we will catch up at some other point, Jen, at some point when the dust settles. Maybe if they actually fight, we can live stream commentary on the fight.
I'm so in. And I know nothing about like fighting or sports, so I think I will really bring something valuable to the table,
Charisma,
which is
mostly.
a charisma and aesthetic,
Yes.
observations, which I'm always up for.
Which is what we need in this world.
Which is
Aesthetic observations of Elon Musk. Okay. On that note, Jen, this has been great. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to The Other 51. Special thanks to Dr. Billinson for joining us this week and to their dog Stevie for being quiet during the episode. Actually, that's a lie. Stevie would have been awesome if she had been on. Anyway, you can find show notes for this episode and all of our episodes wherever you get your podcasts or at our home at sportsmediaguy.com. Our theme music, as always, is by Ellie Moritz.